Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of In the Doll World. I'm so excited that you're joining me today. I have such a wonderful guest. I know I say I have a wonderful guest all the time, but I do. I love all the people who come and say yes to being on In the Doll World and sharing the things that they do. So today we have Kat Picot. She is the publisher of Shrunk, which is a modern miniatures magazine. And I'm so excited to talk to her about how she got started, what made her do a magazine for miniatures, and what her background is. So thank you so much, Kat, for being on In the Doll World.
Cool, thank you very much for having me. And I was really excited to get your email. And yeah, I haven't. It's been a while since I've had a good mini chat actually, so it's exciting.
That's great. I'm excited to talk to you about it because when I found the magazine, I was just fascinated by it. One thing I do want to say before I ask you this question is that the magazine is beautifully done. It is, to
Oh,
me,
thank
it looks like like a architectural digest kind of thing, which I think is so cool. I just think it's such a great, it's just a beautiful look to the magazine. So
Oh,
um,
thank you very much.
you're so welcome. So please share a little bit about yourself with our listeners and where you're from and how you decided to get the inspiration to come up with a magazine about miniatures.
So I'm actually back in Kent on the coast, which is the southeast of England
Hmm.
in the UK. So Shrunk happened during lockdown, so the first lockdown that we had over here in the UK, and I'd just been made redundant. I was living in Brighton, which is a really lovely city, just sort of a couple of hours up the coast from where we are now.
Hmm.
And yeah, I got made redundant from. I just started a new job. It was a really exciting role. I was really happy to be doing it, but as was the case for many people, unexpected circumstances, and it was kind of a few weeks in after the sort of the shock of it all had sort of
Hmm.
gone a little bit, and I was just thinking, what can I do to kind of keep busy? And so the background to me sort of being this level of obsessed with dolls houses, my first ever job when I was 14 was in a dolls house shop, so in my hometown, um, in Faversham in Kent. It's got lots of really old like medieval Tudor buildings, and there's
Okay.
this old pharmacy building,
Hmm.
and it's like grade 2 star listed. You can't do anything with it. There's no heating in it. It's freezing in the winter. But what was perfect about it is that it's still, if you ever visit Faversham, it's still there. It's now a really lovely like knitting, like yarn shop.
Okay.
They've still got all the original fixtures from where it was a pharmacy, and it's like all these little wooden sort of alcoves and tiny
Hmm.
drawers, which is perfect. Like the stock for when it was a doll's house shop, everything was like stored in these little drawers. It was just like
Right.
displayed in the pharmacy alcoves. It was just incredible. Like I was spoiled really for my first ever job. Um, but sadly they closed down sort of just as I was leaving school, which I think
Oh.
if she hadn't have done, I would have just stayed there forever because it was
Hmm.
just the dream. It was amazing. And then kind of fast forward, I'd sort of gone off to uni and I'd moved to London and done some jobs. Sort of after my degree and things, and I kind of kept picking up dolls houses like as a hobby. I kept sort of dipping back into it. Did a bit of blogging, so I launched. It was just like for fun. I just did this blog sort of while I was job hunting called Four Little Walls, and just started sort of sharing bits and bobs that I was sort of making for myself on there, and has a sort of online like e-commerce store for a few years under the
Hmm.
Four Little Walls handle. And I'd sort of wound all that up sort of just in the year before COVID, and I'd gone back to uni and done my masters in journalism, and then sort of when the redundancy happened, I was just like, well, maybe I should just write something. I was like, oh well, now would be great doll's house time because I can really just indulge in it without feeling guilty because I've
Right.
got nothing but time. And I was like, oh, I should just go back to blogging or maybe a magazine because like where the journalism masters had sort of kicked in, I was like, yeah, I'll just do something really over the top. And after a few glasses of wine, I was sort of saying to Eddie, my being like, I'm going to make a magazine, and he was just like, are you okay? Great. And yeah, and then he'd sort of go off to work. He was doing delivery driving during the pandemic. He'd sort of go off for 12 hours and come back and just find me sort of surrounded by cuttings and like things that I was just like
Hmm.
scribbling out like it's happening. We're doing a magazine, and yeah, so that's where it started really, from a place of insanity, really, just alone in a basement flat in Brighton in isolation from everyone. But there is
Who knows what could have came out of that, right?
exactly, yeah. But the amazing thing was like from that. physically very isolating place was like I kind of just I thought, well, now I know what I'm calling it. I'll make the Instagram profile and just put
Hmm.
the feelers out a little bit. And I kind of shared on my Four Little Walls Instagram, like, oh, I'm thinking I'm going to do this. Just keep you posted.
Right.
And went to bed. And overnight, sort of friends and followers in America had just shared and shared and shared it. And I was just inundated with just really lovely comments and messages the next morning being like, yes, when is it happening? Like, we want to read it. I was like, oh, okay. So I'll do it then. And so issue one was a Kickstarter campaign,
Hmm.
which I'd never done before and was quite a good learning curve. It was lots to sort of absorb and learn and
Hmm.
figure out. A few mistakes along the way were made, and but that was fine because that's you learn
That's a part
the
of
best,
growth,
I
right? That's a
think.
part of starting anything, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
and knew I wanted it to look like an interiors magazine, like dolls houses, like 1 to 12
Yes.
scale has always been like my sort of comfort zone, really.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of how it was forming in my
Right.
mind. And I was
Yeah.
just like, but I want it to be modern. I don't want it to like just be dolls houses. I want it to be like mixed media artists and dioramas and model
Hmm.
makers and set designers and dolls. Although I kept thinking like dolls need to come in at some point, and then we got to issue 6, and I still hadn't quite cracked it. We're on a hiatus from printing and production currently.
Hmm.
Um, Purely, well, partly I had a baby, and then so that was between issue 4 and 5. So there was a little bit of a break there. Despite my meticulous planning, we were going to have the Christmas issue. Issue
What
5 was,
is that
I
planning? What is
know,
that?
I know. Issue 5 was supposed to be the Christmas issue, and I was like, this is fine because I was fully self-employed at that point, so I had the
Hmm.
flexibility, and I was just like very naively being like, we were in this still in the same flat that everything had sort of with the magazine had sort of grown from this
Hmm.
tiny 1 bedroom place, and we're just thinking babies are small, they're not going to need, she's not
No,
going to take up much
they
room.
need everything. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
and,
Yes.
and yeah, she rocked up 6 weeks early, so that kind of fully derailed everything really.
Hmm.
And so kind of just put a pin in that while we caught up a little bit. And then I think it was like she came along in the November, and then the March I started working
Hmm.
on the next issue.
Okay.
Um, yeah, again, quite naively, I thought I'd just be able to keep up that pace. I was like,
Hmm.
she'll nap and I'll just get the work done when she's napping. But obviously,
No.
that isn't reality. So yeah, I was really like happy to get issue 5 and 6 done. And issue 6 was the most recent one, so that was actually it's here actually. So this was
Hmm.
the one that I'd really wanted to do. I really wanted to do like a sort of festive, like
So
season
pretty.
one. And
Yes.
so that was like the Christmas issue that I've been really like longing to do.
Hmm.
And Christina's amazing photography on the front. So somewhat
Beautiful. Yes.
controversially, she was actually our cover star for issue 5. And then the projects that came in for issue 6, like they're all beautiful and like so
Yes.
well
Beautiful.
executed. But I was just like, but that is like the Christmas interior like
Hmm.
vision that I'd had. So yeah, I
Right.
was
It is. How many publications were you plan on doing per? Was it going to be monthly, and then you switched to quarterly, or had you already started out saying, I'm going to do a quarterly or monthly? How did you decide to start
so
doing it?
for, in the very early days when I was launching the first Kickstarter, I was like, it's going to be bi-monthly. I'm going to do 6 a year, and very
Okay.
quickly realized that was not going to be sustainable. As one person running it mostly from an iPhone in my flat. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to do it quarterly, and then we kind of got there, but then issue 4 like came and went, and then obviously there was the
Right.
break
Hmm.
when along came baby. So yeah, because as I said, we're on hiatus at the moment. I feel like there's more to do. Like there's more I still want to do with it, and there's just more fun to be had there still. So I don't want to
Hmm.
kind of leave it there.
Right.
But so we've moved 3 times in the last year and a half as well. So that's obviously, but now we're settled and I've got the
Okay.
working space, got the office space. So I would
Okay.
like to get it biannually again, like maybe 2 a year realistically.
Oh
Um,
wow. Okay.
and just maybe I think what's going to be more sustainable for me is like maybe going back to sort of like digital content and online content for a little while.
Hmm.
It's just a faster turnaround, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I think it's a
Like
faster turnaround. Yeah, and it's
yeah,
easier to lay out with because you started off with just
yeah,
so when you started off, it was just a hard copy of the magazine, and
yeah,
then you
yeah.
switched to digital. When did you switch to digital?
So I've always done it's been print first and then the digital edition.
Okay.
So I think I don't know why, because obviously like digital publishing is cheaper
Yes. Yes.
by quite some way. And I think because I just, I love a printed magazine,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
the penny sort of dropped like much later than it should have. Really, like I did the launch issue, and then I was like, oh, well, it's really easy to just now I've made the thing. Like actually, just doing a digital version is really
Mm-hmm.
straightforward. So I
Right.
sort of had this like light bulb moment. I was like, yeah, why haven't you done that already? So there are digital versions available, although the platform I have been using um unfortunately just in the last couple of months have like retired their app, so I'm
Okay.
kind of just sussing out like what's going to be the most user friendly platform to like move to next
Okay. All right.
without
Okay.
really breaking the bank.
So when you started out, and you said, okay, you're being a journalism major. I know you probably do a lot of the content writing part of that, right? But you still have to get pictures done, and you still have to lay stuff out. And so, who did you bring on to do that for you? Because I'm sure you had to photograph some stuff, or is everything submitted to you and then you lay it out?
I was just really, really fortunate that so all the cover images were
Mhm.
all shot by the contributors themselves, some on
Oh,
an
nice.
iPhone. Yeah, so
Okay.
issue one was shot on an iPhone.
Oh, I love that. I just love that.
Yeah, and it was just like, I mean, I'm not a graphic designer, so I did the design, I did the layouts for issue one and two.
Okay.
I had a very, very basic knowledge of InDesign, and I did the layouts, and it was excruciating. And then by issue three, I was like, oh, this might have to like just for the sake of time and speed, like even with all the time that we had sort of in lockdown, I was like, this needs to speed up a little bit. And I was very, very lucky to receive an email from the lovely Amelia, who we'd never met in person. It turned
Mhm.
out we kind of just crossed paths. We'd gone to the same university to do our masters. Like I was just finishing mine and she was just starting hers, and she's an incredibly talented professional graphic designer.
Oh, nice.
And she's got a real passion for like independent
Mhm.
brands, and she'd seen the magazine and really loved it. She wasn't really from a sort of miniatures or doll background.
Yes.
She
Mhm.
really liked the concept and liked the magazine, and she'd ordered a copy, and she was like, I just wanted to get in touch and say like I loved it. I just had a few ideas. Like I'm really like keen to work on a magazine like this, and I was just like, yes, please take it.
Nice.
Like it's
Nice.
yours.
Yeah,
Do whatever.
thank
I completely trust you. Do whatever you want to do with it. And like she was, yeah, she was just incredible to work with because I was very much like learning as we went with everything.
right.
And yeah, so and she was just a very sort of like calm, steady presence, which was perfect. And it just, yeah, it worked really well. So she Amelia designed issues 3 to 6.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Beautiful. Yeah, they laid
yeah.
out very, very, very nicely, I
But
must
yeah,
say.
and so in terms
Yeah.
of like the projects and like featured artists,
Mhm.
basically if we had a last minute sort of emergency, like if for whatever reason some content hadn't come through,
Mhm.
or people have emergencies and they weren't, especially during that time period, like
Right.
everyone was so
Yes.
like up in the air. So sometimes I'd have to like rustle something up really quickly because we had a print
Mhm.
deadline.
Right.
So shoot something on my iPhone, but mostly all the images were from the contributors and the artists, and
Mm.
yeah, they were all just, I'm always just in awe of how multi-talented everybody is, because it's like, they're making the things and then they're photographing the things and then they're keeping their Instagrams updated, and they're, depending on kind of how they're operating, they might be running an Etsy store and they were going to shows.
Mhm.
And like it's incredible really just how many things like people are turning their hand to. But yeah, I never hired a photographer, never
Okay.
needed to hire a photographer.
Mhm.
Which also like the flexibility of that, and just because everybody was able to sort of provide
Mhm.
such beautiful images of their
Good
work.
content. Right.
It just
Mhm.
meant that we were able to, like, I didn't realize it was going to be quite as international in terms of content, because I had a few people say, "Oh, you're in the UK," and I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm in the UK," and they kind of, I think, just from where a lot of the featured artists were from the States and from Canada,
Mhm.
they're like, "Oh, we just thought it was an American publication." I was like, "Oh no,
Right.
I'm in
No.
England." But no, so which was, and again, I think I don't know if that would have happened quite in the same way if it weren't for the pandemic, because everybody was online and communicating sort of
Yes.
from afar, and it just suddenly made it feel like not impossible. Just like, I can do a magazine, and I'm going to make it with you know, 6 other people per issue, and they're going to be the other side of the world, and that's just going to be fine. And it was, and it was, yeah, it was really,
Mhm.
really fantastic and fun. And I think the best part of all of it has just been to have, well, just chats like this, and just to meet so many lovely people, and like just hear about all their kind of different avenues into the hobby and kind of where
Right.
it's
Yeah.
taken them.
So how do you curate your content then? Like, do you like, I mean, do you search everything and then you contact everybody? It's like, hey, send me your stuff, or are you a little bit more, particular in how you do that?
It's kind of a mixture of all of it. I kind of, when I was setting out, I kind of thought, maybe I'd like theme each issue, but I found that was quite. I'd start off maybe with having a theme, and then just be a bit like, oh, is that a bit? But if I really wanted to speak to this person, and it doesn't quite fit this theme that I've given myself, and
Mm,
so I kind of just kept it quite. Tried to keep it eclectic, and then kind of obviously, I suppose the Christmas one was probably the most themed in that there was seasonal projects and kind of that sort of festive vibe
mm-hmm,
through it. But I think issue 3, and also issue 3 was the one where the first one where we had Amelia on board as the designer as well. So this was actually the summer issue, and we
mm-hmm,
had this gorgeous Spanish style house in the front,
mm-hmm,
and we had a swimming pool project, and we had like ice lolly project and things like
mm-hmm.
that. So that was kind of like a nice sort of summer fun one,
Okay.
um, but still had like lovely mini interiors in there. So yeah, trying to strike a balance, but mostly it would be I'd have an idea of who I'd want to approach, but also I would probably say 50-50 to be honest. I'd have an idea of
Mm-hmm.
people I wanted to speak to, but also I was just really fortunate to have uh, lots of very enthusiastic people approaching me, just being like, I'm working on this. Do you want to see it? And I'm like, yes, I do. Thank you. Um, so yeah, it was quite a nice sort of collaborative effort.
Right, right. Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I love it because I just, I never thought that for I think the last year and a half, probably I've been really fascinated about miniatures.
Mm,
I just find the work to be so fascinating to me. I mean, I could barely I could barely create anything in regular size, so just to think about creating something in miniature, and some of the stuff is so detailed and so
yeah.
beautiful that it just floors me. And so when I saw your magazine, I was just like, this is the coolest thing I've seen in such a long time. Do you have a specific area or genre of miniatures that fascinates you the most, in that area?
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, part of the reason I did the magazine and kind of I felt that need to sort of just like write all this stuff is because I have a real problem with like picking, just choosing and like deciding on things. So I've got my own dolls houses. Like we've got one that I bought. So when I was working at that dolls house shop when I was 14, I saved my wages for a year. It was like a mini mortgage, and I paid it off every week, which was a very savvy business move on the part of my boss. So she was basically paying me, and it was all coming back
Right,
in.
and you're paying her, right?
And I paid off this doll's house for a year, and it was completely impractical. It was like the biggest one, and then like it's
Wow.
just always been at my mum and dad's because it's been too big. Like whenever I've been renting, and like, it's always been tiny like flats and apartments. Like it's not not been practical to like move this enormous doll's house. It's still there, and I just had to have it. But at that point, it was we'd just watched like the BBC's Pride and Prejudice with my auntie, so I was like, it's
Hmm.
gonna be Pride and Prejudice house, and then kind of when I came back to the hobby, I was like, oh, I kind of want it to be like a house I want to live in, and that's kind of that stayed true, I think, and kind of channeled through with Shrunk. It's like that modern. Yeah, I want it to be look, my dream house, or like the
Hmm.
house that I
Hmm.
aspire to own one day, and sort of make decorating choices you perhaps wouldn't make in a real house, or you know,
Right.
I don't just all of it really fascinates
Hmm.
me. I think I really I love miniatures that like work, like the real versions.
Hmm.
That always that fascinates me because I think just the precision and the skill some of these like artists have to be able to make like a working Swiss Army knife or a
Right,
working
right. Hmm.
tiny umbrella. And like the tiny sort of like mechanical toys where like you wind the tiny little handle, and it's like it's got 5 different moving parts and like a sort of real like old fashioned toy. Yeah, just a bit of everything really, which is, yeah, again, that's why I did the magazine, because I kind of think I'll get it out my system more if I just cover it in there and like
Hmm.
speak to a lot of different people that are doing so many
Right,
different things. Then I don't actually need to do all of those different things or
right.
collect all of those different things.
Hmm.
And so most recently, I've always been like, controversially, I appreciate for your audience, I've not been in the doll camp. in terms of dolls houses, because it's like for me it's been
Right.
about the interiors and like taking those photos, and it's like the trick of like showing someone a photo of a miniature room, and there's that like, oh, is it real or is it mini? And like
Mm-hmm.
that's what I love about, like, I follow such a mixture of like real life interior accounts and
Right.
miniature accounts on Instagram, and you'll be scrolling and you go, oh wait, hang on, that's not a real room. And like even now, like when you spend more than a normal amount of time looking at dolls houses, like you can still get tricked. And
Oh,
so my feeling was always like, if you put a doll in there, like the illusion's gone straight away. Having said that, much like with the dolls houses, I really love doll just in their own rights, like.
mm-hmm.
But then I was just like, oh, but would I want Barbies or would I want a Blythe doll? And then it's like you really go down the rabbit hole, and then you've got like, the real custom like artisan dolls, and you're like, oh no,
Yes.
this is going to be like a whole other thing. Then you're going into a bigger scale, because if you get the doll, they're going to need furniture, and then that's it's a dangerous spiral to go down, I think. But having said
It
that,
is.
we recently committed to our
Oh,
first collector's doll.
okay.
I found her in a little charity shop around the corner, but apparently she is Hollywood hair Barbie
Okay. Yes.
from the
Hollywood Hair Barbie.
90s.
Yes.
She's
Uh-huh.
missing her boots, but I have
Oh.
sourced some, so they are available on the internet. And my mum's like, "That's not really for the baby, is it?" I was like, "No, no, it's not."
So how did you decide to do the layout for the magazine? Do you have, I know you feature artists, but how did you decide to do the rest of that? What did you want to bring into that magazine to make it, I mean, it's already different, because there are not that many magazines out there, a few more, but
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
there's a few. So my first kind of like work experience after I'd finished university when I was like 21, 22, I worked for a little craft publishers here in the UK, and at the time they had a quite established like Dolls House. It was called the Dolls House magazine,
Hmm.
and they're a really lovely team, and like the editor had been on it, I think like maybe 10 or 12 years at that point, and like it was quite I think it was like one of maybe two in the UK, and there was maybe a couple more
Hmm.
in the US, and I think there was a couple more like in Europe, like in the Netherlands and things, but they weren't English language ones, so it's not, I
Okay.
never really accessed them really.
Hmm.
When I was there in my 20s, I kind of remember like flicking through these magazines and just being like, oh, it's just not exciting, because it was
Hmm.
all, it hadn't really, when I was 14 in the Dolls House shop and seeing these magazines, that was the only sort of material that I had, like
That you
the
had.
internet, or like there was no Instagram, and the internet hadn't quite sort of, I think there was a few blogs, but I hadn't really like found all of that yet.
Hmm.
And yeah, I was just like, oh, it's all just a bit like the same. So kind of when I was starting out with Shrunk, I just wanted to be like, just exciting and fun, and just a bit more accessible. I mean,
Hmm.
I think it's maybe the case with a lot of craft. By the time you bought all the things to make the thing, like
Right.
you've spent a lot of money.
Yes.
But trying to kind of, and that is definitely true with miniatures, and obviously as with any hobby, it can get quite
Yes.
expensive. But I mean, I was
Expensive.
at a point where like just financially the sort of disposable income hadn't been there. Like cost of living was high and things
Hmm.
like that. And obviously then redundancy had come through. It's just sort of like I don't feel like I'd explored it enough yet. I still think there's more to do there, but just kind of demonstrating it doesn't have to be like the most high end, like
Yes.
artisan made everything. Like you can
Hmm.
make something out of a cereal box, or you can sort
Right.
of dig through the recycling and like find like little treasures and kind of see where your imagination takes you. Like I really kind of wanted to do like more of that, or at least just using like accessible materials. Like polymer clay I think is always a really good go-to. Like I think every
Hmm.
issue there is always at least one polymer clay project, just because it is really versatile, and it's like it's great if you're a beginner, but like what you can do, and like the artists who are like really experienced and been doing it
Hmm.
decades, like what they can do with polymer clay is
Right.
just blows my mind. It's like
Hmm.
magical, the kind of like like especially the cane building techniques, and just so fiddly, but just like the result is always just like, wow, they did that with polymer clay. And then like you can just pop it in the oven at home, like you don't need a kiln. You can kind of build it up gradually, like you might just, you can buy, like when I was kind of just out of uni, like polymer clay was the thing that I bought to kind of play around with and sort of just get like my creative side sort of
Hmm. Right.
out a little bit, because I always had like a little bit of table to work on, and whatever flat share or house share I was living in, and like you always had an oven, so you
Right.
you'd be able to do it. Um, so that was kind of like my main thing, and just yeah, and just hopefully just keeping it fun. Definitely, kind of just wanted to shake it up a little bit and just be like,
Yes.
it should be something that people can just dip into, and and don't feel that you have to be like really sort of like artisan guild member level to like
Right. Yeah.
share what you've made. You can just be like, I
Hmm.
made this thing and I really like it, and it's made out of an egg box, and that's
Right.
fine.
Like, what do you see for Shrunk as a magazine? Like, how broad do you want it to be? How, do you see it as being I guess, influencing, more of the world of miniatures, for other people to know what's out there? Like, what do you see the magazine doing?
I mean, I was just still am just like blown away by the response it got. Just the very, very warm kind of welcome I got. Like, I was
Hmm.
contacted by, and I still like get contacted by people who I've never met, and like they live the other side of the world. And just they'll be like just really excited to talk about it, and like talk about the magazine or talk about miniatures, or like and just show me what they've been working on.
Hmm.
And so kind of I'd like to, well, I hope that we can like continue on that and build on that. I think just from a personal level, I need to sort of figure out how to move it forward in a way that is sustainable.
Yes.
Obviously, because life behind the scenes has changed quite drastically in quite a short space of time from
Right.
where like when the magazine started to now. So
Right.
it's, yeah, trying to figure out how I can sort of like get it all, keep it all moving
Keep it
forward
all right,
without
moving forward. Right.
losing my mind.
Right. how
And
to
just
how to
balance.
how to establish it for growth, right? Without
Yeah,
being,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, without being
Um
overwhelming.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, from a financial point of view, I feel like sort of having our roots in like Kickstarter campaigns, I feel like that is potentially going to be like what happens for like the relaunch, if and when that happens. I mean, I don't want to sort of put any sort of loose deadlines on it or anything. I'm hoping, if not by the end of this year, like early next, we'll have a plan about
Mhm. Mhm.
how issue 7 is going to happen. Um, so yeah, which I'm at a place where I'm like getting excited about that now, rather than just being like terrified, because I don't know how much of it sort of was heard about in the States. But so when issue 6 came out here, coincided with these biggest we've ever had, like union strikes
Wow.
in with our postal
Mhm.
workers like across the country. Royal Mail just ground to a halt. And again in January there was, I can't remember what the issue was now. I think like the Royal Mail system got hacked,
Oh,
and so
wow.
it had a huge impact on international deliveries. And I think it was the week before Christmas, and obviously the majority of my everything I've sold from issue 1 through to now, still everything goes to North America, which I didn't expect. I like when I launched it, I really didn't. I don't know why. I didn't
Wow.
realize that people that far away would be the ones to find out about it first. Because it's funny, because people in the UK still will be like, "I've only just found you." I was like, "Oh no." And I had like 400 magazines in the post,
Really?
stuck. And because it's not a pass, I was just, there's all the sort of bureaucracy and just everything around all of that, and I just sort of froze, and I just sort of had a quick add up of, because then the emails started coming, because obviously people were keen to get their orders in time for Christmas, or if they'd been
Mhm.
presents, or like they were having
Mhm.
time off, so they wanted to sort of be doing their crafting while
Right.
they were off of work. And then I was just like, if none of these people get their magazines, if everything just doesn't get delivered, and I have
Mm.
to refund and or replace,
Right.
and I
Right.
was just, and it was kind of devastating, sort of emotionally and financially, really, because so much work had sort of, from probably the biggest group of people so far, like the support team I'd had for issue 6, because that was another Kickstarter,
Mhm.
had been, yeah, just like a real sort of gargantuan group effort from a lot of very lovely people.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was kind of just really devastating to like suddenly realize, like, oh, this is, you know what's
Yeah.
that meme on it? It's like, I will never financially recover from this sort of thing. And yeah, so I just sort of pulled the shutters down on the shop, and was just like, I cannot ship anything else until this
Mhm.
backlog clears,
Right.
which I don't know when that's going to clear.
Mm.
And it was just, yeah, and it's like, you're one person. It's like, of course, people, you need to keep in touch with your customers, but it was like the busiest time of
Right.
year.
Right.
All those,
Yeah.
and I was just like, and I think that was the moment where I was just like, yeah, actually, I need to sort of just, because I planned out this year kind of the production schedule and the printing deadlines. I'd sort of spoken with Amelia about her availability, and we had
Okay.
all those conversations. So issues 7, 8, and 9 were planned out in
Okay.
on paper,
Okay.
in terms of scheduling, and I was just like, I don't think I can do another one yet. So I think I just need to like take a pause,
Yes, and regroup.
regroup.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
so
Exactly.
yeah, I would
Hmm.
hope that I just do more of the same. And as I said, there's just more that I want to explore with it in terms of projects and artists that I haven't that I'm still really keen to sort of meet and speak to and
Yeah.
feature.
Hmm.
Um, because also where I've sort of taken my head out of it or not been on Instagram sort of so much over the last couple of months, it's like whenever I do get a moment, just sort of put back online and just have
Right.
10 minutes to myself. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like, look what that person's worked on, or this person's
Right.
worked on. Like,
Yeah.
there's a project that's moved on, you know, to a completely new phase since I last saw it. So yeah, I mean, and that's what I feed off of as well. It's just,
Hmm.
I can't I'm not an artisan miniaturist, but I really love sort of just curating all of the
Yes.
exciting things that I
Yeah.
find. So
Yeah.
that's probably like the most exciting bit, really.
Most exciting thing. Yeah, I totally understand that. That's how I feel with the show. It's in a way
Yeah.
it's about curating, right? All the different artists and people that are in the doll community, to just show up and share what it is that they do.
Mm,
I think that's always pretty cool. Do
definitely.
you? So, is there a miniature? What do they call? I don't want to say miniature artist. That might be not be the right word, but there's an artist that you have wanted to have featured in the magazine that you have not been able to get, or do you have your fangirl moment in that space? Like,
Oh, I think I've had a fangirl moment with like every person
yeah,
I've
exactly.
seen,
I
to be honest.
understand. Yes.
Um, I think, uh,
Yeah, I feel that way too. It's so cool.
yeah, it's hard, isn't it? I mean, yeah, there's a couple of people
Hmm.
that, so Lauren, who is Southern Gothic Dolls House on Instagram, she is fantastic and just prolific. Like if I had half her energy and brain, like it would just be incredible. Like in terms of what she explores and shares and researches, like she's so like detail orientated and everything. It's like it's not just the Dolls House project. She's very the literature sort of that she's
Hmm.
sharing behind the scenes, and like that she's applied like this whole narrative and storyline. It's
Right,
like
right.
layers and layers of detail,
Right.
something else. And we had a really lovely chat during lockdown before Shrunk existed, and I was just gonna resurrect my Four Little Walls blog, and I was just gonna write a blog post, and then I overthought it too much because like I think we had a really lovely chat, and I was like, okay, so like try and pull yourself together and get an article out of it. And then the Shrunk idea was happening. And I was like, oh, but like then I could put her in Shrunk. And then I was like, oh, but it's really not a modern doll's house. It's very like
Mm,
gothic
right. Okay.
looking, and like but it's sort of the storyline is that it's modern day, and you're looking at this sort of decaying
Hmm.
house that's sort of almost like
Right.
a time capsule, which is and like she's really into like the horror genre, which is not my cup of tea at all. I can't watch horror films. I'm too too scaredy cat. um so but it's quite interesting just hearing more about that side of it. And then I sort of overthought it too much, and I was like, oh, when I do like a sort of Halloween issue,
Right. That's what I was thinking.
that
Maybe
would
do
be the
like
perfect
a theme.
content. But
Right.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
And then so I guess I would really, really, really love to just feature her work in print.
Nice.
But I save everything to my Instagram, like saved posts, thinking
Right.
this is amazing, and I want to talk to that person. And when it's time, I'm gonna go back to them and talk to them about
Right.
this. So
Okay.
at some point, the Instagram reel will come out.
That's what I do too. I just take snapshots sometimes of
Yeah,
the people that I want to talk to, because I will forget who they are, and then I have to go back and be like, oh yeah, it's that person. Let me reach out
yeah,
to them. So yeah. So I know as an independent publication, there's definitely always challenges, right? Financially, I'm sure being the number one, like in any business, right? What has been a few other challenges, and what has been some of the rewards of you doing this magazine that you've encountered?
oh goodness, I don't know. I don't want to kind of bore everyone with like the sort of, I mean, the challenges, logistics, I would say is the
Yes.
biggest thing.
Hmm.
Being, you're one person, it's like making the magazine, and I really underestimated
Mm.
how much of a sort of time drain, like the packing
Yes.
of the orders and processing the orders are going to be. Again, probably quite naively. I think when I did the launch issue, I was like, oh, I'll print like 200 copies. Like my mum will read one, my boyfriend will read one.
Right, but that's the
um,
thing too. Sometimes you do that and you just don't think that it's going to be, as big as it is, or get to
yeah,
be, reach, like you said, more people than you expect. You're like, oh, I'm just going to do this magazine and probably a few people will read it, and then all of a sudden things change. And it's like,
yeah,
now I have to figure out, okay, how am I going to change with that?
yeah,
How I'm going to, keep that flow so I'm not going crazy,
yeah,
with the growth.
exactly.
Yeah, I get
Yeah,
that.
so I'd say, yeah, logistics is definitely the biggest challenge. So that's sort of my number one, sort of as and when there is an issue 7, I would like to kind of for that to be
Hmm.
sorted first and foremost.
Right.
Like in terms of challenges, and also again, it's just the postage. It was such like issue from issue 1 to issue 6, so that was just shy of 3 years, um, in terms of like timeline, and yeah, like two
Hmm.
and a half to 3 years, and the international shipping restrictions and rules
Oh.
changed so much. So I think issue 1 was really quite straightforward, because it's one magazine. It was going in a paper envelope, and that was, in terms of customs, um, we were in the EU, and that was fine. And like, I think Australia was like the most complicated one. And
Okay.
I'm always so excited and grateful to anyone who's international and ordering a magazine, because I understand the postage is eye-watering, but the Australians were literally paying almost almost double the price of the magazine
Wow.
for the postage. Um,
Okay. Wow.
so I was just like, thank you very much, and I really hope you like it when it gets there.
Right.
Also especially during the
Because
pandemic.
it's an investment for them too. It's an
Yeah, and then
investment
they
that
would
they
wait
spend
like
on you.
3 months for it to arrive because of
Wow.
how like, how long it was taking.
Oh wow. Okay.
Um, so yeah, I mean, like that was sort of like you get really excited about creating this like fun magazine and talking about dolls' houses and getting to sort of spend the afternoon like making something and photographing it and writing it all
Hmm.
up and doing all the fun stuff. And then sort of a week or two down the line, you'd be like, oh no, I've got to just sit and literally write customs labels for a day. like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. That's a lot.
which, but again, it was all good learning curves and kind of figuring out how to sort of, you know, the bigger it was getting, I was
Hmm.
just having to, you need another solution to this. You need to find there must be a way to make this easier.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, just reaching out to like even if it wasn't people that were sort of in like independent publishing or just people who were like used to running like an independent business or like any sort of e-commerce that e-commerce side of it,
Hmm. Hmm.
was yeah sort of invaluable really.
Okay. And
Um,
what have been the rewards? Because obviously those outweigh the challenges because you're still doing the magazine. So
yeah,
what are the rewards of you doing that?
I
Of
mean the
doing this
rewards. I
magazine?
mean getting to go to Kensington Dolls House Festival, so it's in London. I'd been like numerous times over the years from when I was like a teenager, but it wasn't always practical either because I was working or like I just didn't have the money to sort of do the trip to London and go into a Dolls House show. Then you
Right.
kind of thinking, well, if I'm going to go, like you need to have a bit of spending money, otherwise why are you going? But it's like sometimes I would just go with like £10 to spend and just be like looking longingly at all these stalls. Um, but yeah, so Kensington Dolls House Festival. So it was the September of 21. So it'd been almost a year, and I think we had issue 3 just,
Hmm.
and it was a real sort of like that was the first pinch me moment. Partly because it was we were just getting used to like being out in public with everyone again and
Right.
sort of being
Right.
together. And I was quite pregnant by that point, and it was the first time I'd ever like taken Shrunk like out into the real world, like
Hmm.
beyond the living room and just posting it.
Okay. Yes.
It was like putting it in front of people and like seeing what they thought of it in real time. And it was just incredible. And like to be like Kensington has always been that sort of like, I don't know, I guess it would be like when you're a kid, like seeing like a Disney film or like going to that sort of like butterflies in your tummy, exciting, sort of like this is amazing. And it was that sort of moment. And my sister came with me, and we stayed in a hotel around the corner. So it was 2 days. It was the Friday and
Hmm.
Saturday, and it was like it really fun. Also, I'm really I'm not the best salesperson, and I think as well when it's your own thing, like your own product, like I found it really hard to
Hmm.
just be like, yes, this is amazing, and you should buy it. I made it,
Right.
thank you.
Right. Right.
Whereas one of my sisters, she's really like she's always worked in retail. She loves it. She's very passionate about like great customer service and like
Mm-hmm.
getting all the information across. And she's listened to me talk about dolls houses for the last sort of 30 odd years. Um, so she was like such a brilliant sort of wingman to have. Um, and yeah, it was just like that was a real like core memory. I just think, regardless of where Shrunk goes, and
Right.
like just having that first like, oh, okay, I've made a magazine and now we're here and it's
Right.
happening and it's lovely. And actually, Charlotte, who runs Kensington Dolls House Festival, she phoned me, like she messaged me, like I think within a day or two of me making that first Instagram profile. There was no content, there was no magazine, and she was like, "Oh, can we have a chat?" And so we spoke on the phone, and she was just like, I don't know what it is yet, but like I'm excited and I love it and I want this to work because I think this is such a great idea. And it was just like it was just so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was a bit of a fangirl moment because it was like Kensington Dolls House Festival has always been
Like
like
the
oh
epitome of
yeah, like if I can
yeah,
get there
yeah.
this year, that would be like year made sort of thing, like highlight of Canada, and just as like a customer. But yeah, but to go there like as a vendor with the magazine was just
Yeah.
like best, and we were really fortunate we were able to get back there. So not for the December one, so we did the September one, and then obviously when because I was again naively just being like, oh well, she's not due until like such and such a date in December, but it's she'll probably be late, so I'll do the Christmas show. And Charlotte was a bit
Mm-hmm.
like, please don't have a baby at the Dolls House show. And I was like, no, it'll be fine. But as it turned out, I did have a baby early. So my sister and her partner very lovingly went and just did like they did the show and sort of represented Shrunk for me in my
Oh,
absence, which was
nice,
really
nice.
lovely because neither of them were remotely into miniatures or dolls
Mm-hmm.
or anything, but just as an event they just
But then
really
you just want to
liked.
go and yeah, and support you
Yeah.
and help you showcase. Yeah. It's like this is not the
Yeah,
genre I'm really into, but I'll help you do that,
exactly. Yeah.
So and that's great, and those are the people you need them too, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that not everybody has to be into what it is that you're into, but if you have people who still want to support you regardless, that's the important thing.
Yeah, and it was just just lots of lovely, just sort of like just like little moments from that whole period. Really, it was just it was an exciting time, and I think I hope to get it to that sort of exciting, busy phase again. It's just
Yes.
I think out of necessity, it will look slightly different moving
Hmm.
forward. It's just figuring out how it's all going to come together still
Okay.
currently.
Okay, so that's kind of where you're at, but I know it's going to get there because I mean, like I said, it's not even the fact that it's the magazine, it's just that it looks beautiful, and if people are going to look at things and they're going to spend their time investing in a magazine and bringing it home, they want to see something that's beautifully done. And you have, you and your team have definitely done that really, really well.
Thank you very
So,
much.
really, it just really, I'm telling you, when I saw it, I was just like, this is like the best, coolest magazine. It's so cool. I, I,
It's
I
kind of
love
like
it.
I guess that was like a second to it being like a mini interiors magazine. I kind of was conscious of I wanted it to be something that didn't like lose its value quickly. So kind of consciously
Hmm.
I've not put like shopping features in there really,
Right, right.
unless it's like a lovely photo and it's sort of just like something to look, it's staged nicely or it's styled nicely.
Hmm.
Um,
Right,
rather than just like here's this thing for this price and here's this thing for this price.
right. It's,
There's
it's
so much
definitely
of
not
like
that type of magazine. That's for
yeah, and
sure,
it's
which I think is
don't get me
great.
wrong. I mean, I love a bit of mini shopping, but I just think that needs to be something that's like quick and moves on quickly, especially where you've got people who are maybe doing like really small like sort of batches of things or one of a kind items. Like I kind of
Hmm.
think not a lot of unless you're like showcasing their sort of portfolio, it's
Right.
from a shopping point of view, I kind of think by the time it gets to print, you risk disappointing quite a lot of people.
So you're at the stage now where you are, you done the last magazine for the year, and then you're focusing now on next year.
Yeah, so
Okay.
yeah, I kind of, as I said, I had this sort of grand plan for how 2023 was going to go. But I kind of feel like now we're looking ahead to 2024 more now. So kind of, I'm hoping to sort of get it together a bit and yeah, see, I think quarterly at this stage is probably still a bit of a stretch
Okay.
realistically. So I'm thinking we're going to just kind of have a bit of a pivot and just be like, we're just going to be a biannual magazine currently. um,
Hmm.
I just don't want to overstretch and overpromise and
Right, right.
underdeliver.
I totally understand that. Well, well, first I wanted to say thank you so much for sharing. what it is that you do. I think it gives people, it gives the artists a great opportunity, to showcase their talent in your magazine. And what I love about it is that it also gives people who are listening or watching the show an opportunity to see the vastness of being in the doll community. So you don't have to make a doll, right? But if you make miniatures and you make other things like that, you can still be, your work can still be seen. And I think that's important because people are out there doing their work, so it can be shared. And the fact that you have such a great magazine to showcase their talent, I think is just really so helpful for them.
Yeah, I mean that's yeah, definitely.
So where can people get your magazine and find out more about it?
So, if you go to shrunkmagazine.com, you'll find I've got some back issues still available on there, and also I make some available on the Etsy store periodically as well, just to bypass international shipping. So it just streamlines that process a bit more, make sure
Hmm.
that and things like that. So if you're in the States or if you're in the EU, head to Etsy. If
Hmm.
you're in the UK, you can head to shrunkmagazine.com. But also, we're actually going to close for a couple of weeks. So,
Okay.
so we're going to have a little break until the first week of September, just going to sort of refresh the website a
Hmm.
little bit.
Okay.
And hopefully start just bringing some digital content as well, kind of get
Oh,
the
nice.
creative brain ticking over
Hmm.
again.
Okay.
So the main website, trunkmagazine.com, will be the place to be for that.
Okay, great. Well, good. I'm glad we're going to get to see some more digital content. That'd be great.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I've got this like spreadsheet that I've been keeping for like the last sort of 6 months. And kind of I have a like flicker of an eye. I'm like, quick, write that down before you forget, and we'll come back to it. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. And oh, well, thank you so much. It's been so lovely to chat with you.
Thank you so much, Kat, for being on In the Dawn World with me. I really appreciate you sharing your wonderful story and your magazine with all the listeners. And I'm so excited that they're going to get a chance to see the kind of work that you are presenting, and and learning more about the artists that are in the miniature world. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure. That's been lovely. Okay,
Thank
talk to you
you.
soon. Thanks, Rocket.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.